Hi, I'm Lisa Gralnek, a brand builder with 25 years of experience creating and launching new ideas and initiatives for companies as big as Adidas and the Boston Consulting Group and as small as Moo.com or my own startup consultancy called LVG & Co. I've held strategy, marketing, and operations roles. I started my career in fashion as a photo editor and talent agent. And my current role, which is also my favorite to date, is as the US Managing Director and Global Head of Sustainability and Impact for IF Design, a respected member of the international design community since 1953 and host of the prestigious IF Design Award. I also host a podcast, the award-winning interview series Future of XYZ, which you can find anywhere you get your favorite podcasts and on YouTube. And I have a BA, or bachelor's for everyone internationally, in political science and French from university, and an MBA in international business from INSEAD. I live in Connecticut, which is the state right outside of New York City. The leaders and the bright lights, that's who I'm interested in talking to most of the time. And the one thing that I can say that everyone has in common, whether they're designers or business leaders or activists, or anything, beyond that or in between, scientists, etc. They are very, very realistic about where we are and where we have been. But what they're willing to fight for is a transformation for the future. And they recognize that future transformation is only possible if action starts today. And so there's less kicking the can down the road than there was. There's real willingness to kind of roll up the sleeves and say, okay, this may be imperfect, but I'm willing to try. This may not be well received, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? This may not be the full solution, but it's a puzzle piece within it. How do I do my part, and how do I find like-minded community to keep pushing?
Coming up on Design Mindset, we have Lisa Gralnek, Global Head of Sustainability and Impact at IF Design, on how sustainability transformed from an afterthought to one-fifth of global design excellence criteria, and why the future belongs to designers who can distinguish between authentic impact from beautiful greenwashing. Hey everyone, welcome back to Design Mindset. I'm Radhika Seth. Today's episode is brought to us by Keyshot, 3D rendering and visualization software that helps teams align on sustainable material choices and communicate environmental impact clearly. Try it at keyshot.com/mindset. Here's something that's been on my mind. We talk about sustainable design, but what does it actually mean when the world's most prestigious design competition makes sustainability one-fifth of their entire evaluation framework? That's not just adding a green category, that's fundamentally redefining what design excellence looks like. My guest today has made that transformation happen. Lisa is the Managing Director, US Global Head of Sustainability and Impact at IF Design, where she's embedded environmental and social criteria into how we judge what's best for the world. With 25 years of brand building experience at powerhouses like Adidas, Walmart, BCG, Lisa brings a unique perspective on how sustainability moves from marketing talking points to authentic design imperative. She's also the host of the award-winning podcast Future of XYZ, and recently wrote in Fast Company about design's new mandate: empathy, adaptability, resilience, and accountability. Lisa, welcome to Design Mindset, and I'm excited to dig into what sustainable design excellence actually looks like when the rubber meets the road. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Radhika. I'm thrilled to be here.
Lisa, let's start with the big structural change. You helped make sustainability one-fifth of the IF Design's evaluation framework across the 93 categories. Now that's massive. What was the design thinking process behind such a decision?
I'm really proud of this work, I have to say, as the world's largest independent design award and certainly one of its most prestigious. We've been going now since 1954. We have 9 disciplines, and we started with product. That's where we're best known, but it now includes packaging and branding communications, UX, UI,
Mm,
service systems and process design, as well as architecture and interior architecture.
mm,
Each of those places has a different kind of sustainability impact on the environment and on obviously humanity as well and people. And so really, the mission of IF as a foundation, the IF Design Foundation owns everything, is dedicated to research and education around design and how it makes the world better.
mm,
And so, if as an award, we want to actually, as you say, where the rubber hits the road,
mm,
walk the talk, it felt imperative not only to ask about impact, which included commercial impact when I came in 2023, but
mm,
also to say, actually, let's put commercial impact into differentiation, which is one of our 5 criteria, and really single out the environmental and social ramifications of a design. And that was really the decision making. And the design thinking process was to bring together an external group of, we call it the Sustainability Working Group, who are currently 8 experts from around the world who have deep expertise in sustainability writ large, but usually have a sector area expertise. And we work together to figure out what is the process, what is the questions, what are the certifications and accreditations we're acknowledging, as well, most importantly, I would say, of supporting the jurors as
mm.
they go through this process as well.
Okay, so you have that process in place, but when you're evaluating thousands of entries that come in, how do you distinguish between genuine sustainability innovations and what you call, performative purposes? How do you differentiate?
It's a very important question these days, which I guess is why you're asking it.
Yeah.
There are a number of ways, and it's one of the things that we are continuously evolving in this journey. So
Mhm,
I will say, the first year that I came on, when it was not yet sustainability was not yet a fifth of the criteria,
mhm,
impact was what the criteria was, and some people talked about their social and environmental impact, and some people talked about the business impact, but no one was really giving, in the character limits that are allowed in that field, enough information for us to make real judgments. And so at that first jury that I went to, we actually had a couple of sustainability experts on the ground. It was the second year that that had happened.
mhm,
And we found that the jurors were a little skeptical, not because they were skeptical about impact or sustainability, but they were skeptical at how we could know with so little information.
true.
And so when we actually came to the point where we said, okay, commercial impact is elsewhere, sustainability is a fifth of this score, we need to be able to help participants, number one, understand what we mean,
Mhm.
right? And bring them along on this journey so that we're not turning, things over overnight. But the same thing for our jurors. How do we provide them information to be able to score accurately and appropriately?
Right.
And so we embedded 3 optional questions into every single discipline, sometimes category level. So for instance, cars are very different than,
Mhm,
audio. So it depends on what it is, but 3 optional questions plus a fourth, which is this list of objective, global, regional, industry led accreditations or certifications that people can select. These are optional, and they still are in this second year of this, because we don't want to punish people. That's our mandate, is you want to reward good, not punish bad. And this allows people to ask. And our working team decided what the optional questions were based on where the greatest impact is in each of these categories. And so you can say, if someone fills in the open field sustainability text box with a bunch of blah blah blah,
mhm,
oftentimes, for instance, you might see, for instance, I'm just going to say a television or a computer monitor. It's not a
yeah.
great example. And in the sustainability context, they're going to talk about the packaging being sustainable. And
Hmm.
you're like, but you're entering, this isn't a packaging discipline
Correct.
entry. This is about this product.
Yeah.
that you've entered. And so there is an example of saying, well, we don't have anything to say about this. Right? And that's the only interpretation. And so we're really encouraging participants to read the optional questions to understand what we would like them to focus on. So that's our number one way right now. And then, of course, making sure that the experts are on the ground to be able to support the jurors in their asking of questions.
Sounds quite an elaborate process that you have out there. And from what I've seen, that you've written about fewer and better philosophy as well. So, which echoes the Bauhaus principle, but with the climate urgency. What does fewer, better actually look like in an award-winning design today?
It's really a tricky question, and I'll answer it very honestly.
Mm.
Um, if I were being a radical sustainabilityist, as I would like to be,
Uh-huh.
um, none of us needs anything.
Correct.
None of us needs anything anymore. I remember after the 2008 financial collapse, listening to an interview on
Uh,
The Economist, and they were saying, people need to buy. We need to incentivize people to buy. And I'm thinking, no, almost no one, certainly not in most developed nations, needs anything. We have eight, flat screen TVs and big cars and big sofas and all these things. Like consuming our way out of financial collapse is probably it's the capitalistic model, it's the business model of the operating system of the world, but it's not necessarily what's right for the planet and certainly not for people.
mm,
And my first final jury, at the IF Design Award, we get usually in the ballpark of 10 to 12,000 entries every year
mm,
from 70 plus countries across these disciplines and categories. And
wow.
the first time, 50% of those go to the final jury, and about 80% of products and packaging are shipped to a warehouse so that they can be evaluated by the jurors in person over the course of multiple days. It's a phenomenal experience. But the very first time I walked into the warehouse with my sustainability lens on, I burst into tears because you realize how much stuff as human beings we are creating. This is what makes capitalism move and work. And people can say, well, we go digital. Digital has its footprint even more. AI is a disaster for the planet, right? And so, what I'm thinking about in all of this is what does fewer better mean? It's actually an individual conscious choice of consumption. And at the design level, right? So, that's how you design your personal life. And at the designer and company level is thinking about what do we need? And really, I think thinking about using the R ladder, the circular ladder of like, what can we refuse? What can we rethink? What can we reduce? What can we reuse? What can we repair? What can we recycle? What we can
Yeah,
we refurbish or resale? And this is really important. Fewer better is like, I think it's less extractive and more regenerative.
got it. Got it. And it connects beautifully to something that our sponsors, Keyshot, enables as well. Because when designers are exploring sustainable materials like bio-based plastics or recycled composites or low impact finishes, being able to make these choices look realistic really helps the team make authentic decisions rather than just picking whatever looks most eco-friendly. And the visual truth telling helps prevent the disconnect between sustainable intention and that final product reality that is there. So, from your judging experience, what are the telltale signs of an authentic sustainable design versus something that is sophisticated greenwashing that goes on?
I mean, it's amazing the, as you say, sophisticated greenwashing that is going on. And I don't think a lot of it's ill-intentioned either. I think there's a knowledge gap in a lot of these situations, or at least that's what I want to believe.
Hmm.
Um, there are a couple of things. First of all, I need to clarify. I do not judge anything,
Yeah.
nor do the sustainability experts. The
Oh,
jurors are people like, the chief design officer at Mattel Toys, or the head of UX at Samsung,
yeah.
or the design director globally for Volkswagen. So the
Uh,
level of the jurors is extraordinarily elevated. These are professionals in their field with decades of experience. And we advise, and I'm obviously a part of the IF support team. I
correct.
think what we keep doing is pushing the envelope on asking for more information. And the more information that we ask, and the more specifically we ask it in the questions,
Mm,
these optional questions,
mm,
right, are we're really leading the witness. And in this case, each entry trying to focus on what can you do? How do you tell this story differently? And then also having the advisors on board to be able to support our jurors. And I would say one of the places where this is most obvious, the greenwashing, is actually in the packaging discipline.
ah,
And this year for the 2026 award that is the jury convenes the first week of December and the final jury in mid-February with an award ceremony at the end of April. We've ended up with a lot of entries. I mean, the same number as usual, which is fabulous in this tough economic and kind of crazy political crisis that we're facing around the world right now, the uncertainty and the role of design and where it is. So we're very pleased with that. But we asked in the discipline of packaging
mm,
for one more optional question, which is specifically upload a bill of materials or a digital product passport if you have one. Now, sometimes the person who is entering the award and submitting doesn't have access to things like that because it's a different team. But what we've recognized, and one of our experts is the senior packaging engineer at Dell, and Dell has done amazing work on the sustainability of their packaging supply chains and execution. And what we've decided to do, and then we have someone from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation also who's a circular expert. So we said we can't ask for a bomb or DPP on, let's say, computer or cars. They're too complicated. They're hundreds, if not thousands of pages. They don't necessarily know their tier three suppliers, et cetera. But in packaging, it's actually pretty simple. The componentry is actually not as complex. So let's start there and see if people participate. That is going to be our clearest way to say if you're saying we're using 100%, post-consumer recycled paper
mm,
and whatever we'll say, whatever, ink-free dyes and these kinds of things and less water and all, in whatever the packaging is,
mm.
or we're using a polymer that is totally, compostable or there's so many claims.
Correct.
We now, if people choose to do it, we can see the bill of materials, we can see the digital product passport, and we can validate quickly.
Got it.
What's interesting is actually we had a reduction in entries this year in packaging.
Oh,
And we are going to have to assess whether or not this additional layer of scrutiny on the sustainability is in fact responsible for that in any way, or if it's a random, year off for packaging. But I have to say the results are just in, and that is to me a big question mark. Did we in fact just ask too many questions? Because a lot of the packaging is in fact greenwashing, and that is that's a curious question that we don't know the answer to right now.
and packaging, you would imagine, could be one of the easiest to know yes or no whether, they are actually putting the money where their mouth is and supporting their claims. So I guess we'll get to know in the years to come. So,
Exactly.
so you've been building brand experiences, and your experience spans from, yogurt to sportswear to retail giants. How has sustainability evolved from a nice to have brand attribute to what you call the new design imperative? How have you seen that shift or that growth?
I mean, I wish I had seen more of it, to be honest. I joke that I've been, a passionate advocate for the sustainable stewardship of planet Earth since I was a kid, and I started my career in fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I left after about 9 years because I was seeing luxury as just kind of I just didn't I didn't have the same appreciation for the craft that I had when I went in. And I went to graduate school with the intention of coming back and doing sustainability and luxury. Now, I graduated unfortunately into the financial collapse of '08 when sustainability was not a topic to start with, and then it was full all hands on deck fire sale, especially in the luxury sector at that time. Um, I ended up at the Boston Consulting Group in their consumer practice. And I remember vividly sitting with a CEO and one of the very senior partners at a luncheon. And I was asking the CEO what they were doing to change their supply chain to be greener on their packaging. It's a snack food company. And I remember, I'm trying not to out anything here. I just remember being so appalled by the blaseness with which it was laughed at. I was laughed at. The question was laughed at by both the senior partner and the CEO of this behemoth snack food company.
Wow. God.
And I don't know whether it's because I was a young woman
Uh-huh.
among two older men,
Uh-huh.
or if the absurdity of my asking such ridiculous question in 2009
Wow.
was just so something that they had never even considered, which is what they said,
My
that
God.
I was appalled. And I saw that over and over and over again across retail,
Mm-hmm.
across travel and tourism, and across consumer packaged goods and fashion during my time at the Boston Consulting Group.
Wow.
When I went to Adidas from there, I wasn't particularly impressed, but I was able to work as part of what we called SEA,
Mm-hmm.
which were the social environmental advisories. And that was a conglomeration of the biggest sportswear companies in the world who
Mm-hmm.
had banded together to enforce some level of social environmental obligation
Wow.
on their tier one manufacturers in Asia, primarily in China at the time. This
Wow.
is 2010, 2011. And working on that was very interesting because I learned a lot about big corporations pushing the responsibility onto factory owners
Mm-hmm.
and then holding them accountable. So it's a little bit of a carrot and a stick. You will not be our manufacturing partner if you don't do this, but they weren't contributing cost to it. We were still extracting margin and putting the cost back onto and the responsibility for executing onto the factory owners who
Yeah.
had other challenges, right?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
poor, I mean, China is no longer a poor country by any stretch of the imagination, and the low cost country sourcing chase has
Yeah.
continued,
Yeah.
right? And we continue to do this as a world. It doesn't mean we weren't good partners and stewards, but the power and the bandwidth of these major conglomerates basically entitled them to say, sorry, tough luck, yours. And it meant that smaller factories and the smaller tier suppliers weren't going to be able to provide services to the big ones, right? So it was
I,
change or die.
yeah.
And I would have loved to see a lot more partnership happening. And
Yeah.
I will just say that I've seen that throughout my career,
Mm-hmm.
which is sustainability is awesome so long as it doesn't cost us margin, so long as it doesn't cost us sales, right?
Yeah.
And that is, again, coming back to your question of what is the imperative.
Yeah.
That to me is the imperative is we have to have all hands on deck. We can't say, well, actually, this isn't my responsibility. It's
Correct.
yours as
Yeah.
individuals, as communities, as companies, as partners.
So then what lesson transfers, when you are now evaluating design across every conceivable category, uh, what have you seen or what have you seen being practiced by companies now compared to when you were in the business on the other side of the fence? Are you seeing any changes in these companies?
I got lost in my last answer because you had asked that question. I do see a big shift. I think consumers are the ones really pushing the change, to be honest. I think the awareness of climate change, the awareness of what we're doing to the planet, the awareness of the unfairness. I mean, think back even 2011, social media wasn't what it is. I mean, people are have now we can all control our own algorithms, but people are more aware. regardless of what news they're consuming, most people in this world are aware that there is a problem, right? And they are aware that we need to do something to change it. So I think a lot of the change is coming from consumers. Now, there is also a business case for doing better. And I remember vividly the Walmart example, which I will mess up the numbers, forgive me for it. But they made a decision, I mean, 15 years ago, maybe even more now, 18 years ago, to change overnight every single light bulb in every warehouse and every retail, store, of which, basically 99% of the US population lives within 10 miles of a Walmart supercenter. So let's just say there's a lot of stores, they are ginormous, and then they have a lot of warehouses.
Yeah.
So it was a cost of like whatever it was, 80 million, 800 million, I don't know. It was an
Yeah.
enormous line item expense
Yeah.
to change every light bulb from, iridescent to not iridescent, whatever it's called, whatever the word is that I'm blanking on right now because I'm live,
Okay.
to LED, which
Oh,
of course uses less energy.
yeah. Okay.
People were up in arms, like, how do you justify that, etc. The head of sustainability was like, the payback period was 3.5 weeks in our energy savings.
Wow.
We are that big, we use that much. We have already recouped our costs and are already in the black,
Wow.
saving money within 3.5 weeks.
My God.
This is like, again, so often you
Yeah.
just need to make the change. And people are
Yeah.
so scared and teams are so siloed and,
Yeah.
people are afraid. Like you can't be afraid. And the business case is almost always there to do better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So then what's the one sustainable design trend that you're seeing in the awards submissions that that you wish would disappear, or the one that gives you genuine hope? Are there any examples that you could share in that?
The one I wish would disappear, to be very candid, and I don't really wish it would disappear, but it scares me, is our increasing dependence on technology.
Uh,
The e-waste in this world is burying us.
yeah.
And most of our electronic waste
Mm,
is filled with rare earths. And rare earths are very, very, very tricky to mine.
mm,
And they are controlled by very, very few players.
mm,
And this is increasingly in the conversation around geopolitics
mm,
and international trade negotiations,
mm,
and very infrequently in the conversation around sustainability.
mm.
Number one. Number two, the e-waste, forget the rare earths, is just generally out of control. We are producing, and I forget the number. I gave a talk at South by Southwest last year, and I'm going to be embarrassed that I don't recall the number, but we are consuming something like 10 trillion tons
Wow.
of e-waste as a world a
Wow.
year. I hate giving bad numbers, Radhika. It makes me so upset. But it's like the visual we had on the slide was basically the number of dump trucks every hour that
Wow.
are filled with e-waste that the world is creating, right? That we are putting into landfills, which poison water sources, which poison the ground soil. Like this is a huge problem. So everything that is exciting and technological,
Mm,
while exciting and technological and the way the world is going, is
mm,
problematic. And the other trend that I'm really excited to see is the increase in repairability, recyclability, upcyclability, et cetera, in these same electronics, whether we're talking about car batteries, whether we're talking about e-bike batteries, or whether we're talking about mobile phones, or or speakers, or interfaces on a computer. Like I am really, really hopeful that it's not fast enough at all and it's not integrated enough. But that is my hope, is that we can start really pushing towards those kinds of things so that we keep our electronics in use longer.
mm. I totally agree with you on that. So then in your podcast that you have, Future of XYZ, you are constantly exploring what's next. So, what's the most important mindset shift that you've seen in designers who are getting sustainability right? What do you see that they are thinking? How are they thinking differently?
I love all of your questions, Radhika. You know, I tend towards like minds. I think I'm probably pretty biased, I guess, in that I find people who are on this kind of trajectory,
Mm-hmm.
the leaders and the bright lights, and that's who I'm interested in talking to most of the time. And the one thing that I can say that everyone has in common,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're designers or business leaders or activists, or anything, beyond that or in between, scientists, etc., instructors, professors, they are very, very realistic about where we are and where we have been. But what they're willing to fight for is a transformation for the future. And they recognize that that future transformation is only possible if action starts today. And so there's less kicking the can down the road than there was. There's real willingness to kind of roll up the sleeves and say, okay, this may be imperfect, but I'm willing to try. This may not be well received, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? This may not be the full solution, but it's a puzzle piece within it. How do I how do I do my part, and how do I find like-minded community to keep pushing? Because none of us can do this alone, number one.
Mm-hmm.
There is plenty for everyone, right?
Correct.
And it's the one space, you see people, especially because of social media algorithms, the way that
Yeah.
celebrity, quote unquote, and influencer culture is going.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like that's a thing in sustainability,
Hmm.
interestingly. I
Yeah.
mean, on the contrary, you look at like a Paul Pullman, right, who was the CEO of Unilever and made it like, I mean, was doing such amazing work, and he was pushed out by hostile shareholders,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he has continued advocating for what he sees, just like an Yves Chouinard, who is the founder of Patagonia, right? And also one of the co-founders of 1% for the Planet, that is an organization I have long been a business member of and believe deeply in. And what's so interesting to me about those types of people, and there are many more. I mean, Jane Goodall is an activist who just passed away, right? Or even Jane Fonda is a celebrity.
Yeah.
They're not looking for celebrity and influence. They're not mincing words. They're not saying things just for the sake of the impact and the result of people's reward or monetary reward. They are really walking a path that I think helps guide us forward and drive the world forward. And
Mhm.
that's, I think, that's I guess the answer to your question.
Thank you so much. Um, Now we move to the best part of our conversation today. We're going to move into the design mindset challenge.
Oh
So,
boy.
so here's a scenario, a hypothetical scenario that I'm going to give you, and I'd love to know how you would tackle it using your experience. All right. So,
Okay.
so a
I'm
consumer.
nervous.
You shouldn't be. You have a lot of experience, and I'm sure our listeners would love to know how you get past this almost real life situation. So, a consumer electronics startup has created a modular smartphone design that has a 10-year lifespan instead of the 2-year lifespan, the replacement cycle that most people follow these days. So, the sustainability story is genuine, okay? Repairability, upgradability, ethically sourced materials. They've got it all right. But it's 40% thicker than the current phones, and it costs almost 60% more than their marketing team wants to, then hide the sustainability story because they think it'll make the product seem very compromised. They want to advise on they want your advice on the positioning for both sustainability consciousness and mainstream consumers without seeing performative or apologetic. How would you tackle the situation?
It's a complex one. I mean, my first question to the team, if I were advising them, is does it really need to be 60% more expensive?
Uh,
Can you not get greater adoption by taking a margin hit,
Uh-huh.
right, in order to get greater adoptability? My second question is why is it 40% thicker?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a way of making that somehow cool in the design, even though that's not what consumers want? So, are there cues within the design that you can do, you know? But those are two things that as a consultant I can ask, but I probably can't impact at the point that it's already created. So, if I'm then looking at just the positioning piece of things, I think there are a number of things. One is how do you get certifications
Mm-hmm.
that are going to resonate with your audience? So if you are targeting, let's just say the eco-conscious consumer, right? That is who your target audience is. What do they recognize? Is this fair trade labor practices, right? Are you a B Corp, for instance, or a purpose, corporation that is allowing, at the highest level of operating, you are making your commitments to social and environmental factors. That would be one thing. Things that matter, things that are globally identifiable to your consumer base, who you're targeting. On the product level, also, what certifications? I mentioned fair trade. Is there fair trade? You talked about the materiality. And your marketing materials, yes, they think that it's going to make it compromise. Your marketing materials need to tell the story. What is the difference between your normal phone, right, that people are
Yeah.
buying, and the
Yeah.
materiality and the craftsmanship and the work? And what is the side by side comparison of this one? What is the impact of those choices? So it looks 40% thicker because actually this is the technology hasn't developed enough, right? Because you're using, let's say, a bio-based plastic, or you're using a metal that actually is going to last that 10 years. So you don't actually have to repair it, even if you drop it, and you don't have to get some flimsy plastic outer covering to
Yeah.
protect your phone, for instance, right?
Yeah.
How
Correct.
do we tell the story of each aspect? And I believe that the education, it can't be too long because people don't like to read too much. It can't be too
Correct.
this, but how do you illustrate really like side by side componentry and educate people on
Yeah.
this is what I have in my hand or my pocket or my purse currently.
Yeah.
This is what I'm offering you side by side.
Mm.
This is what this timeline is, and this is what started with. This is where it will end up, the life cycle.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to buy in exchange. This is where the story started, and this is where the story is going to end.
Yeah.
That is pretty compelling
Yeah.
for people who care about their impact.
Yes. Yes. That's really a fantastic way of putting it across without sounding very preachy. I like the way you positioned it in a side by side example kind of a way. So, yeah, really good. I really, really liked your answer. Thank you so much.
Phew, thank you.
Yeah, so from this, we move to the more fun part, which is rapid fire. For someone who's seen sustainable design from brand building to global judging, I'd like you to just give me quick rapid fire answers for the questions that I have. So
Okay.
let's start. Complete the sentence. Sustainable design fails when designers prioritize dash over dash.
Profit over purpose.
Interesting. One material choice that instantly signals authentic, sustainable versus greenwashing.
Oh, that's complicated. It depends on the category. I would say anything that is renewable.
Interesting. Nice. Your quickest test for whether a sustainable design is actually better design.
Is it necessary?
Interesting. And most overused word in sustainable design submissions.
Uh, oh my God, there's so many. It's something in the ballpark of, it's something about the plastics and how they've come to be better. And there's so many like, oh, well, we use the discarded tea leaves for the cup that we put in here. And it's always these weird blends of plastics that actually change absolutely nothing of the composition, but mix some like organic into it, and then doesn't talk about what it actually impacts. I don't know how to say that in some, but yes, that's what we see a lot of.
Okay. And in one word, what does accountability in design feel like?
Responsibility.
Lovely. Lisa, this conversation has been incredibly illuminating. You've given us a masterclass on how sustainability isn't just an add on good design, it's becoming the definition of design excellence itself. Your key insight really resonates. Authentic, sustainable design feels like better design, not compromised design. And when sustainability drives innovation rather than constraining it, that's when we see breakthrough solutions that win awards and change markets. And thanks to Keyshot for enabling designers to visualize and communicate sustainable material choices authentically. And for everyone listening, you can follow Lisa's work at IF Design and check out her future XYZ podcast whenever you have time to listen. And you can connect with her on LinkedIn for insights on how design creates system level changes. And personally, Lisa, for me, today I'm taking away this key insight that the new design imperative isn't about making things look sustainable, it's about making sustainable solutions irresistibly better than their alternatives. And thanks for bringing this perspective into design mindset. And your conversation really perfectly captures why design thinking must evolve to meet the moment we are in. And next week, we'll be exploring another beautiful conversation. So, my listeners, remember, don't just live by default, design it, and see you next week.
Thanks so much, Radhika.